Hey everybody, I'm Redeyes and welcome back to What's This Then? Where today I'm here to answer that very question about Desktop Survivors 98. So, this game is a roguelike bullet hell, and you'll see I've just activated the screensaver. We'll get into what just happened there in a second here. Like I said, roguelike bullet hell. Very much in the vein of Vampire Survivors and that Vampire Survivor-like sort of wave of games that have been coming out since that game came out. I do, however, like the term that sort of has been coined for this type of game, called Bullet Heaven. I really like that term for this style. You know, we need to move away from the Vampire Survivor-like, much like Doom-likes were back in the day, you know. And I think Bullet Heaven is a really good name for this genre. Now, this one is brought to you by a solo developer who goes by the name of Brandon Heslau. Hope I'm pronouncing that okay. Heslau. Self-published, I believe, as well. Or at least the Steam page would indicate as much. Now, he has worked on a previous game called Buddy Simulator 1984, but I believe that wasn't a solo endeavor. That was sort of more of a group thing. I'm not sure to the extent of that one now. I've only just seen that he worked on it. Now, this one is come to Steam, came out on the 20th of May there, so as of the time of recording of this video, so it's been out for about 2 days or so. And you can pick it up for about £4.29 or $5 or your regional equivalent. So pretty cheap game. But I have to say, just to give you a little heads up, definitely punching above that price range, 100%. There's also a free demo that you can try on the Steam page, which is very nice. We always appreciate a free demo. Shows confidence in the product, and it's just a very consumer-friendly maneuver to do that sort of thing. And that's actually how I found out about the game, was that I believe I saw it on social media that this game was happening. I was intrigued by the thumbnail for the image. And then went onto the page, seen that there was a demo, tried the demo, liked it, and mate was looking forward to when it actually fully came out there. So, with all that being said, let's jump into the settings. And this is an interesting one when it comes to settings. As you can already see, actually, by what you're currently looking at, it looks a lot like a desktop. Windows 98 desktop, to be precise. And that is a very deliberate choice, as the whole theme, the whole vibe of this game will very much fill you with that nostalgia, if you're familiar with that time period. And you've even got in the bottom right, not Clippy, or Swordy, as he is in this, which is very fun. And everything in this game is themed around that idea. So, if we hop into the settings, which you do have to double-click on, you know, because it's an icon on your desktop, kind of. That's actually one of the little gimmicks about this game, which is quite fun. But I'll go through the settings here and then discuss that. So, as you might imagine, there's not going to be a lot of graphical settings here. But the settings that are here are good anyway. So, you can change the wallpaper. What I have it on right now is Dynamic Dungeon, so depending on what level you're playing, there will be a unique background for it designed with that place in mind. But there are some basic ones like clouds, you know, you can apply that and, you know, now we've got clouds. And that will be the background for all the runs. Personally, I like Dynamic Dungeon just because it gives each level, a more unique feel. However, as you might imagine, and by the existence of this browse button, you can upload your own ones. And in the spirit of this game, I have uploaded pipes. I think that's pretty fitting. However, I'm not actually going to play with pipes in the background today because it's a little bit busy. But fantastic that you can just even do that sort of thing, to be honest. Now, the rest of the settings here, we've got damage numbers, enemy outlines, keep system cursor, you know, if you just want to toggle any of this stuff, dungeon borders, flashing screen effects, just all the sort of little things that you'd like to be able to change. You can also change the background dimming to be whatever you want. So if your desktop background is too bright, you can just dim it a bit so it's a bit easier to see. Contrast with what the enemies you're fighting and such. Because if you... actually, no. go over the rest of these first. Don't get distracted. Display settings fit above taskbar, so you can have it. So right now I have my taskbar being hidden whenever I'm not like actively hovering over it for OLED reasons. But you can have it so it fits above your taskbar, so your taskbar would just be like at the bottom of the screen the whole time, which is just another little like, hey look, we're playing on your desktop thing. You can change the GUI scaling, which is very nice because it goes tiny. And on a 4K monitor, it sort of starts here, and it's almost impossible to read. So I very much appreciate this, and the fact that it shows you the GUI scaling right off the bat. Very, very handy. Input settings, you can do enable keyboard, controller sensitivity, you can do controller as well. There's actually some extra like iframes on getting hit that controllers get that I saw was put in a patch there earlier, because I believe because the mouse is your character in this. So when you get hit, you just move your mouse like somewhere else. However, if you're using a controller, you don't necessarily have that option. So they added some iframes, which is very nice. Audio settings, Spotify awareness. Now, I have not tested this, but it's an interesting inclusion. And then you've also got your audio settings there, which is everything you would need. So that's pretty much everything in the settings. But now, I'm not sure how this is going to look on OBS. I don't think you'll be able to see my actual desktop here. But if you click Sortie here, it like minimizes the game, and now I'm just interacting with my desktop, like under it. Like Steam is, you can't see it on OBS, but I'm interacting with Steam in the background, and I'm technically not alt-tabbed out of the game. And I've never seen this in a game before, which is very interesting. So that's one of the little gimmicks of this. And the other gimmick being that you play with your mouse cursor. Like that is the character, that is the person that you are in this. Which is very interesting. Just a neat little gimmick that I've never seen before. Now, before we jump into a run, there's some very nice stuff on the side here. Some of this you'll need to unlock when you first start playing. I've been playing for a few hours now. There's unlocks happening all over the place. Like literally just, I sat at the desktop the way you saw, and a screensaver popped up. Like that got me an unlock, for example. Now, if you want to see combinations, if you want to see what you've unlocked, it's all in there. You've got like, I've unlocked this shop of which I can do the sort of meta progression upgrades that you might come to expect from this sort of genre. So you don't have these off the bat, you need to find these. It is an absolutely delightful website. Piper's Emporium, because it's a cat, of course. And then the Burial Bay, where, again, another thing that I had to unlock, but you can put an item in here that you have unlocked, and then you will be more likely to get it, which is very, very cool for these sorts of games, because you may want to try a specific type of run, but it's RNG based, so you may not get that run, and then you may feel like that run was wasted, whereas the Burial Bay, that sort of alleviates that somewhat, which is very nice. So, let's go to new run. Of course, we've got to double click on that, it's on the desktop. Your cursors are your characters in this. So I'm probably going to associate this a lot with Vampire Survivors, because by the developer's own words, Vampire Survivors was a huge inspiration for this, and you can really feel it, especially once we get into the gameplay and you start seeing like how the level up, how the weapon selection works, and how the leveling up for them works, and how the combo system for them works. Like it's very Vampire Survivors, even as far as other Vampire Survivor games go, or like games go. So right now I've unlocked, the classic is the one you start with. So you can see a breakdown of like all the stats that it gets and stuff, and some like unique effect to this cursor. There is a cookie clicker one, because of course there is. This scrap one starts with the recycle bin, which is kind of like a shotgun. This was the most interesting one, or the most fun one that I've found so far. It's called Doom, and it puts a super shotgun at the bottom of the screen. Now I'm probably going to use the scrap one, because so far that's the one I've had the most success with. This game is quite hard. We'll jump into it and I'll show you why. I've also unlocked a next level called Hollow, but I'll just show you the Grove for now. Now you can see the background changing for the unique dungeon. So let's load on in. There's our music kicking in. And so you start, it's a bit unlike Vampire Survivors, where in Vampire Survivors you would just be on this massive level and you're told, survive for 30 minutes, that's your job. However you gotta do that, get that done. In this game, it's more dungeon based. So you'll see this door at the bottom, like I can go through here, and that'll probably lead me to some enemies. And yeah, like I said, I'm using my actual like mouse cursor here, which is just fun. But yeah, the way it's like dungeon based, so you go into a room and you have to survive in there for a certain amount of time. And once that timer's done, enemies all wipe, and then you move on to the next one. So I'll show you what that looks like here. So we'll jump into the next room. And it is strange, like even now it feels so fun and like quaint to be using my mouse cursor as the like character in this. But there you go, you collect your gems from killing enemies. These gems level you up, just like how you'd imagine with this sort of game. You get a random choice of either weapons or passives. So fishing pole would be a weapon, and the power supply would be a passive. And you have combos, or evolutions, I believe is probably the more correct term. And what this does is if you get two combo items, so a passive and a weapon, then they will evolve into some better version of that weapon. Right now I'm just going to get the power supply for some extra damage. That seems pretty good to me. And we got, yeah, we'll just level up our recycle bin. Probably good to get that going. So it does bring me into one of my sort of minor gripes with this one. Now, it's kind of alleviated by the cursor that I'm playing currently, but you can really feel it when you're playing the starting cursor. Now, the starting cursor fires just one shot, like one cursor arrow toward the nearest enemy, and by default, that's its like default behavior. Now, the problem with this is because enemies have to be fast to keep up with your cursor, because you can just move it however as fast as you can literally move your hand or whatever your sensitivity is. Because of this, it means that you do tend to end up running rings, running circles around enemies a lot. And what this will do is it'll blob them up in the middle a bunch, and that cursor shot might struggle, depending on like what room you get off bat, like what randomization you get with the enemies. That cursor shot might not be one-hitting them, so they're just blobbed up while you're trying to stay alive and move around the place. And your shots can't actually kill anything. And this game requires you to be able to kill, not just survive. Like, you need to kill things because you need to level up fast. You need to get upgrades, you need to get more weapons, you need to get some combos going. Because if you don't, you're going to follow behind that damage curve pretty quick. And I have found from just a couple of runs now, it doesn't happen like too often or anything, but just a couple of runs I've noticed this happening, where my run almost dies on the first couple of rooms because I can't kill anything, because I have to keep dodging things or else I'm gonna die, and enemies are just clumped up in the middle, and my arrow shots are going into them, and I can't kill them because like the one I've just shot is now in the middle of the clump and I can't hit it, and you know, etc, etc. So see the way they're kind of clumping up now? This isn't like too bad. Like if I got this room first, it wouldn't be too bad. But see how they're clumped up like exactly at the minute? So my cursor shot would like go into one, and then it would be in the middle of the pack and I'd never be able to hit it again. And because we only have 30 seconds, like I'm never going to get through that clump before the timer's done. So now I've just spent a room not getting as many upgrades as I could, because when the room wipes at the end, I don't believe you get the experience for the enemies that are on the screen. You only get the experience for what you've killed. So that would just be some minor gripe. And it is, like I said, it's alleviated almost immediately by the fact that you can purchase another cursor that has a stronger starting weapon. So this just doesn't seem like an issue with the recycle bin, for example, which is the second one I got, because it tends to one-shot, like, pretty easily. So even when they clump up, in fact, it's actually better when they clump up with the recycle bin, because I'm killing multiple of them at once. But really, other than that, I can't think of like any sort of actual downsides. There were a couple of bugs actually in the first couple of hours that I played. However, the dev has been updating this game like crazy since it released. I think whenever I was first playing it, every time I would look back at Steam, there was just like another update to do. So there's a very solid chance that those bugs that I ran into are now fixed. There was one where at the end of a floor before you go down the stairs to the next floor, you get a chest, and that chest has a bunch of money and like upgrade items in it. And I just couldn't close that chest, and then I was sort of soft locked. I could still move the cursor and like do whatever, but I couldn't leave, and it was a little bit annoying. Because that meant that run just died there, and you know, if you've got a good run going when that happens, that can be very frustrating, and you know, you'd be like, I don't want to play this anymore. So, but like I said, the dev he's been updating the game relentlessly, it seems, since it came out. So, it's very possible that that bug is now fixed, but I want to be upfront and honest about, you know, my experience, my first impressions with any game that I play, so I'm going to let you know about that sort of thing. Even if it is fixed now, that was my experience, so that's just how it is. But other than that, like I said, this game has just been absolutely fantastic. If you like Vampire Survivor, like Bullet Heavens, if you like Bullet Heavens, I say I shouldn't use the term Vampire Survivor likes and then I go ahead and do it. But if you like Bullet Heavens, then this is an absolutely great one. This one I would say is a lot harder than most of them. Like I said, mainly because it has to compensate for the fact that your character is the cursor, and the cursor can move as fast as you can physically move it. So enemies have to be quick. So you will oftentimes get to the point where like the screen is just like really difficult to parse what is happening. But I suppose at that point, it's the argument of, well, your run, like, you should be building your run better. You know? Like, you should have got a combo sooner, you should have got a better upgrade sooner. The meta progression, like, once you die a couple of times and that starts kicking in more, you know, that'll become less and less of an issue, because you'll just be killing stuff so fast that that just doesn't even matter. But certainly something to think about. If a more challenging Bullet Heaven is kind of what you're looking for, this one is pretty hard. To its credit. Like I said, I don't think it's a bad thing. It's a good thing. Anyway, pet the cat. If you have lost some health, that will give you some health. And this is a shop. You get an item, increase weapon crit chance by 3%, but max HP is reduced by 24%. So I'm not gonna take that one. I think my run's doing pretty well without needing to get the crit chance, but that, minus 24% health, am I gonna miss it that much? Probably, actually. You can get some nasty rooms in this where you just start getting hit, and your health bar does not feel very large in those rooms. But from what I've seen, the shop's like expanded stuff. Like there's a sort of progression to all the little like stuff that you find in runs as well, which is cool. I haven't found anything for that yet, but I do know, well, I unlocked the shop on the main menu that let me do the meta progression from buying stuff from this shop, so I suppose that's one thing. Much like Vampire Survivor specifically, this game has a ton of unlocks. Like, you will be unlocking something like every run. You will do something that you didn't think was going to unlock something, and then you'll unlock something. And then there'll just be another thing for you to find, another thing for you to look forward to. Which is really, really crucial to these sorts of games, I feel like. Absolutely crucial. Now, because it's a dungeon-based thing, there is a map, and the map is Minesweeper, because of course it is. So I can see that there's a room over in the bottom right. That's probably going to be the room where we go down to the next floor. There are boss rooms. Now, they're not necessary, you don't have to fight them, but they do give you a big sort of monetary and upgrade reward if you do them. So, might be worth doing it. I have found that starting with the recycle bin shotgun is usually a good time to go against the first boss. Although he is a little bit nasty in this phase when he's bouncing all over the place and the bats are coming. So far I've seen 2 bosses. There's one for this floor, and then I've seen the one on the next floor. I'm not sure how many there's going to be, how many floors are going to be. That sort of stuff I haven't really seen the end to yet. Obviously, like I said, only put about a few hours into this so far, but I feel like I've gotten a pretty good sort of first impressions of what this game is trying to put down. And like, even just when you're putting yourself in the same genre as Vampire Survivors, it's pretty much expected that there's going to be a ton of stuff to find and unlock, so... And I do look forward to that stuff, because it's always fun and interesting, especially if you are enjoying the theme of this being a retro Windows experience. Then the things that you unlock, they've just got that extra little, like, bit of fun to them, you know? It's just always a good time. Like, I'm sure there's gonna be, like I put with the wallpaper earlier, I am almost certain there's gonna be a pipes thing somewhere in here. I don't know if it's gonna be a weapon, I don't know if it's gonna be like a passive, I don't know what it's gonna be, but I'm almost certain there will be pipes something in here, you know? And that's almost like a fun little bit of game in and to itself, is trying to guess what retro Windows thing is going to appear here. So beating the boss, we got an injection. Increases weapon chance to fire additional projectile by 47%, 9% chance for the next enemy to explode. That seems pretty good, it's just an up and up. So I can inject that into any of my weapons that I have. I only have recycle bins, so let's give it to that. Extra projectile and the chance to explode. We could do a lot worse than that. There's also little items just like sort of dotted around the maps, and you can click on them, and sometimes you get a little bit of gold, sometimes you might get a little bit of health, and health is cookies, as you might imagine. There's actually a weapon that's also a cookie clicker weapon. It's just a cookie that sits in the middle and has arrows around it, and they occasionally click and do damage to random enemies. It's quite fun. So I believe this will be the last room of the floor, and we've got some faster enemies here. So these enemies, for example, if I hadn't gotten a very good start to this, my run might just end in this room, because they're so fast that they would group up in the middle quite quickly if I couldn't kill them. And then you'd just be struggling to kill, and then it would just get worse, and then, you know, it just seems like it's very easy for that to happen currently. But that could be a meta progression thing, like I said. So it's hard to judge, and you can also just get, like, you know, the recycle bin cursor and pretty much alleviate that issue almost immediately. But if you were doing a challenge with the starting cursor, then, you know, maybe you might not enjoy that so much, who knows. But you do got some fast enemies, and they've got, the enemies have different, like, types of movement and stuff, as you might imagine. So some enemies move at you very quickly, some move at you a bit slower. These sort of like bird ones just sort of float around until they kind of lock on and then fly at you pretty fast in a straight line. So they're pretty easy to dodge, but while you're dodging other stuff, they're a bit of a problem. And there are projectile-based enemies as well who will fire sort of shots at you as they come in off the sides of the screen. So you can't just sort of get to the point where you're so strong that you can just sit in the middle of the screen, because a projectile enemy might still hit you. Although it depends on your upgrades, because some items might block projectiles as well, so you might still be able to do that. Because I know that was always one of the most satisfying things about playing these Vampire Survivor-like bullet heavens, is getting to that point where you're so strong, it's just, I can just sit here. You know, I can just sit here and I'm wiping the screen, doesn't even matter. Or at least for me personally, that's one thing I really liked about Vampire Survivors. So what do we want to get here? Increase projectile speed, fires a cursor, paint bucket. Let's get the paint bucket, that just sounds fun. So just occasionally it will just drop some paint blotches on the ground, and enemies that go over that will be hurt. Which is just fun. So I got a notification there, recover 1000 HP across all runs, now available, the Crumbler, damages a random enemy with each click. So that's the cookie clicker weapon, so I've now unlocked that to actually get in other runs. The cursor that started with it just started with it, but it didn't unlock it for everything. So I couldn't actually, I don't think I could actually upgrade it in that run. I only did one run with it, and I never actually got any upgrades for it, and I was wondering why that was, but that could just be because I hadn't unlocked it as an actual item yet, so fair enough. One thing I forgot to mention that's a little bit different about this one is you can actively use your level ups to heal, if you wish. However, I do personally feel like that if you're using your level ups to heal, you've kind of already lost, with, you know, a few minor circumstances aside. Because you want to be getting stronger. Every upgrade, every level up matters, like, massively. And speaking of level up, I'm going to get the FPS one. This is the Doom one, which is very fun. So I'll show you it here after I open this chest. So you get some money, a free upgrade, lovely stuff. And like I said, that's where I got that bug before where I couldn't close that chest and then it was soft locked, but I haven't seen that happen since the update. So I can only assume it is gone now. So let's hop down to the next floor. And here we are. And then it sort of continues like this, you know, keeps getting harder, you keep getting upgrades. Oh, I suppose one other minor thing that I could bring up about the game is, I haven't tested this, so, but I recently moved up to 4K, resolution for my gaming monitor. Now, I don't know if my cursor is smaller on 4K for this game. Obviously it is on Windows, like on the desktop, but I can only assume it is for this as well, just given how much it integrates the desktop into this. And because the cursor's so small, it can get very hard to see when it gets crazier. Now, personally, I don't like to touch Windows scaling, like putting my desktop up to like 150%, 200% or whatever, because that introduces some level of... it's not really mouse acceleration, but it kind of acts kind of like mouse acceleration just due to how Windows like does the calculations for that sort of stuff. So it's not really a fault on this game that happens, obviously, but it just means I don't want to put the scaling up. So a setting to increase the size of the cursor would be nice, just because it gets very hard to see amongst all of this sometimes. But that's like, again, it's a minor thing, and once you get an item like starting with the recycling bin, which basically sits on top of your cursor and is quite a bit larger, can kind of alleviate that somewhat, but also might mean I have a smaller hitbox, so maybe, you know, some give and take there. Flower box bounces around the screen, click to bounce away. I haven't used this yet, so let's give that a go. So it's bouncing around like the DVD logo, but I can also go over and click it into a different direction. That's fun. Let's upgrade to FPS. Yeah, this run enemies are getting pretty quick, but I've gotten quite a few nice upgrades now, so we're tearing through enemies a little bit. One thing I haven't really been doing this run is paying attention to combos. Just because I'm mainly focusing on talking about the game and getting some interesting weapons to show off for the video and stuff. So, but you can get very strong very quick if you try to find those combos. Find 5 stopwatches now available. The scheduler. So there's a new thing. Clock speed decreases by 10%. Interesting. This is an interesting one. Lasso. So you can draw like a circle around enemies to do damage to them and stuff. I think that the lasso by default is maybe a little bit... the length on it is a little bit too short, because it feels kind of difficult to do a proper circle without getting hit, because of how fast the enemies move. But maybe I should just be... I'm just going for it, you know? But any gripes I have at this game are like the most minor, you know, they really don't impact like the enjoyment of the game whatsoever. Like the novelty of what's going on and the actual quality of the game here is just very impressive, you know. Like this is a great entry into the bullet heaven genre. Like absolutely. Ton of fun, and like I said, it just has that extra layer if you're nostalgic for old Windows stuff, if you've been there, if you've used it, and that just adds to it. That only adds. It's just a ton of fun to unlock things, not even just so much based on, hey, this new thing is going to be useful for my runs. It's just fun to look at because it's based on something that you used to use, you know. This room's not doing too bad, and then we've got some extra gems, like they moved from blue to green for some more XP and stuff. Very, very Vampire Survivors like. That was one of the first things I noticed. I was like, huh, this game really liked Vampire Survivors, because the gems looked almost one-to-one from what I remember. It's been a little bit since I played Vampire Survivors now, but then I went and looked at the dev's website, and he was like, yep, I love Vampire Survivors. So yeah, that made a lot of sense. I love these bouncing the flowers. You can also get a DVD that bounces around the screen as well, as you might imagine. Unfortunately, it's not the DVD logo. It's just a DVD, a physical disc flying around. Yeah, it'll be interesting just to see how much content's on offer here. It seems like a lot. It seems like a lot. Like, oh, there's word art. I should have took word art. flies some word art words horizontally across the screen. Very fun. Upgrading it makes the words longer and stuff like that. It's very fun. Yeah, it's a good time. It's a good time. And I do like the visuals, you know, they're other than the theme, I mean, like, you know, visuals on the enemies and stuff like that, they're fun. Neat little sprites and stuff like that. The outlining, I would say, on them is almost necessary. I would definitely recommend having that on pretty much at all times. Especially with, like, the frogs and stuff, or these three little, like, bat enemies or whatever they are. They might blend in with the background pretty hard. But yeah, I think that's all I really wanted to bring up about this one. There's not really a lot wrong to say. There's only really good things going on here. And like I said, price-wise, you're talking £4.29 or $5. You really can't go wrong. So yeah, I think I'll leave it here for this one. Really happy with this one. Would definitely recommend checking it out. Like I said, there's that demo as well. So if you like what you've seen here, and you think, hey, I like that, but maybe I don't want to spend the £5. Demo's right there. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I shall see you guys on the next one. Goodbye.